Hi Penguin fans, Rob Rossi along with Josh Yohe. We are your Trib Total Media Penguins beat reporting team, and we come to you from Consol Energy Center, where Brooks Orpik won't be playing hockey at least for this week because he's out with a concussion. Certainly the Penguins are no stranger to this injury, but if you're worried about perhaps long-term ramifications for Orpik, like Sidney Crosby, who played 8 games over the course of 15 months when he dealt with a concussion, you should know that I spoke with Julian Bales, a leading neurosurgeon in this country, who told me that because Orpik was knocked out Saturday night in Boston, that doesn't mean his concussion is necessarily the worst kind of concussion, and that leading research and evidence suggest athletes that are knocked unconscious actually recover quicker from concussions because symptoms don't tend to be as persistent. So while every concussion remains different, and certainly we can't lead anything into a prognosis for Orpik's recovery, the fact that the Penguins have said he is up and about and in good spirits certainly speaks well for what we know. But Josh, we're here today to talk about fighting in hockey, violence in hockey, and the code. And to set up what happened Saturday night, Brooks Orpik delivered a hit to Louis Eriksson that was a hit deemed legal on the ice. There was no penalty issued. And also, the Department of Player Safety looked at the hit and said they thought it was a clean hit. But the Boston Bruins took exception. They went after Orpik, repeatedly challenged him to fight, and he is not a fighter, doesn't believe that's part of his game. He didn't, and that's what led to Sean Thornton pulling him down from behind and punching him repeatedly while Orpik was unconscious on the ice. You spoke with some players on both sides, Columbus Blue Jackets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. What do they have to say about fighting?
It's a raging debate around hockey, really, Rob, and I look at it as the old school way of thinking and the new school way. I spoke with Rick Tocchet last night, a former great Penguin and who's also a coach in the NHL, and he made it clear that he respects Brooks, he likes the way he plays, but he really believes two things. Number one, that Brooks should have to fight because he is a guy who plays on the edge, who's delivered a couple of controversial hits over the years. Didn't say he was dirty, but he thinks guys like that should be forced to fight on occasion, and he thinks if Orpik simply would have accepted Thornton's challenge and fought him, he'd probably be in the lineup tonight against Columbus. Obviously, we know Orpik. We know he's as tough as nails as a hockey player. He doesn't believe in fighting. Rob, I asked 15 guys in the Penguins locker room last year, do you think fighting should be banned in the NHL? 14 said no. One guy said yes, it was Brooks Orpik. He just doesn't think there's a place in the game for it. And it's an interesting way to look at it. It really is. And I was just in Columbus's locker room, incidentally. I spoke with Pittsburgh's own R.J. Umberger, who's one of 5 people who has ever dropped the gloves with Brooks Orpik in an NHL game. Very few people have. And I asked R.J. about Brooks, and he said, you know what? Brooks is an honest hockey player, and in no circumstance should he have had to fight against the Bruins. And R.J. said he talked with other people around the league. He said, why should he have to fight? The hit on Eriksson was clean. And really the only person who doesn't think the hit on Eriksson was clean that's gone on the record is Claude Julien.
Yeah, and Claude Julien, that leads us into our next point of discussion about this, Josh. Claude Julien sent Sean Thornton out there for a reason, and Sean Thornton tried to extract revenge for that hit. The Boston Bruins aren't the first team to do it. The Penguins have done it. Every team's done it. But that does not change the fact that there is this eye for an eye mentality in the National Hockey League. And Josh, Dan Bylsma talked about it, and I agree with him to this point. I don't think every hit needs to be answered for. But I have noticed, especially since the league came back from lockout, that any open ice hit now, a guy from the other team, a guy from the team whose player was hit, seems to be something that teams want to fight over. This isn't the game I grew up watching. I've talked to some people about that, and their response is, you know, that's not the game I grew up playing, but it seems to be where the game is going, and I do wonder if we've entered this great gray area of hitting. You're not allowed to headshot anymore, and I think we all agree that's the way it should be, but if you look at hits from behind the way they were targeted, if you look at the headshots, if you look at the neutral zone and the way the game is clogged up, perhaps because the National Hockey League wants to slow the game down, they were worried about these violent open ice hits that we saw Matt Cook deliver over the years. I wonder if this idea, something we all grew up believing in, the open ice body check, the Scott Stevens hit, so to speak, I wonder if that's just going by the wayside in terms of what the NHL players think is allowable in this game.
No, I think it is. I think there's a big difference between a violent hit and an illegal hit. You know what? Hockey's going to be a violent game. It always will be. It's played by athletic, large men playing on ice, moving at very high rates of speed. It's impossible to avoid some violent hits. It just is. And if you completely remove those hits from the game, then it isn't really hockey anymore. It isn't. Now, headshots are different. Hits from behind are different. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think you're right. We've seen this in football a lot for all the fans out there that watch the NFL, and I know most people do. NFL players say it all the time. Where are we supposed to hit someone in? And I saw some players on TV yesterday talking about the Rob Gronkowski injury. He got hit in the knee, blew his knees. His season's done. It's because you're not allowed to hit guys up high anymore. And I think the NHL is moving to that point. And this is a situation that isn't going away. It isn't. The more time goes on, the more people become sensitive to concussions, as they should be. We're going to see other problems. And what Orpik did to me wasn't wrong. And should he have had to answer for it? I don't think so. Most players I've talked to don't think so. But you're right. Teams are far more sensitive than they ever have been.
Well, know this much. The NHL's Board of Governors are meeting this week in California, and there are a lot of owners, and those governors are either the owners or their elected representatives, their appointed representatives. A lot of owners who are looking around the league at star players who are out and saying, has this game become too violent, and are our assets being used properly? And that's something Brendan Shanahan and Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, are going to have to answer for to the owners. But the NHL general managers make the rules. And with regards to fighting, and I know this is a more nuanced debate, it's not going anywhere. No matter what you or I or Josh or anybody thinks, the NHL general managers have deemed that fighting is going to be a part of this game. And as long as it is, there are going to be players that think fighting is a way to answer a big hit. But given the way things are going in society and in our accelerated movement towards an awareness of player safety, athlete safety, you have to wonder if violent sports like hockey, like football, are going to ever look the same given the public pressure to change them. It's a debate for a different day, and certainly one that may outlive us. For Josh Yohe, I'm Rob Rossi. We're your Trib Total Media Penguins beat reporting team. Thanks for watching.